Hey, welcome to the Father on Purpose podcast. And before we dive into today's show, which, by the way, has a fantastic guest on today, we have a fantastic guest. Can't wait to tell you who that is. But before I do, I want to remind you of two things. This show is brought to you by Range Leather. Go to rangeleather.com and check out all their brand new products, including just released the Swanky Giant Bag. And it's not called the Swanky Giant Bag.
Yeah, you've ruined that.
It's got a better name, but you need to go find out what it is. Kyle was telling us about it. We couldn't say anything for about a month. It was a bit of a secret,
Man,
but
I
now
want
it's
one
out.
so bad. It's
He's
so
released
great.
it. It's killer. It's a giant leather travel bag. You should go buy one. But before you buy it, when you're buying it, use the code MJ15 and get 15% off the next thing you buy from Range Leather. Go to rangeleather.com and use the code MJ15 to get 15% off your order. Meanwhile, the guest you're about to hear is amazing. And if you want to hear more guests like this, that means you want this show to stick around, which means we need your help. Go to manhoodjourney.org/guard, GUARD /guard, and you can jump into our monthly support team we call the Fatherhood Guard. You will get a swanky, cool looking hat from the guys at Range Leather to impress all of your friends and your wife with when you become a member of the Fatherhood Guard. Go to manhoodjourney.org/guard and you can snag that. Now, Lawson, our guest today, which we just wrapped up the conversation and we're recording this pre-intro post facto, which is great because it's all fresh in my memory, was fantastic. His name is Rick Dempsey. And for many of the guys listening who are in the 50 plus crowd, you're going to think it's the catcher from the Baltimore Orioles from like the 80s. No, it's Rick Dempsey, who used to work for about 35 years at the Walt Disney Company at Disney. And he had a very, very interesting job.
What an interesting guy.
Wow. And you have a daughter who had been a Disney princess, like a legit Disney princess on a cruise ship. And I'll bet our conversation with Rick was uniquely interesting to you along those lines, eh?
Yeah, I told her that this was happening. So I can't wait till the show drops and get to send it to Abigail and let her hear. I mean, going back to the, 35 years ago when he said one of his first things was to standardize the voice of Mickey Mouse. Like, wow, for the world.
No pressure.
That's
Pressure.
crazy.
But, oh my word. You can think of all the, the 6-year-olds who are going to Disney World thinking, man, is this going to sound right? When I think of that, it's funny, as he talked in our recording just now, he had a really interesting job, but along the way sounded to me like he was equally as serious, perhaps even more serious about his faith and his family and being a present dad who wasn't just on the road all the time. And that would have been very tempting in his job. We had a wide-ranging conversation about fatherhood, grandfatherhood. He's hosting 20 plus people at his house next week for Thanksgiving, Christmas. What a blast we had. Lawson and I would love to introduce you to, if you don't know. And he took over a new job at The Chosen, helping them distribute that program worldwide. And what a very exciting and intriguing,
Yeah, you guys will love this
cases,
episode.
convicting conversation with our new friend, Rick Dempsey. Let's go to that right now. Hey, Dad, welcome to the Father on Purpose podcast. Thanks for joining us again. And as we occasionally do, and as I mentioned during our intro, we have a special treat for you today. We have a guest. His name is Rick Dempsey. And if you're my age or older, it's not the former Orioles catcher. This guy is way more amazing than that guy. No offense to the former Orioles catcher. This is Rick Dempsey, lives in Southern California and now works at Come and See and is working on things for The Chosen. But before that was with Disney for decades. Rick, thanks for joining the show today, brother.
Hey, it's a pleasure to be here. Thanks for asking.
Hey, and before we get started, while I got you, I mean, I'm sure an audience with you is hard to get these days. So let me just dive right in. Can you get like Dwayne Johnson to read our script for our Father on Purpose show?
Jeez.
Absolutely not.
Hang on. Now, I'm not going to give up. How about like John Ratzenberger? Could he read a few lines for us for free?
He'd even be too expensive. No, can't do that.
Okay, one more before we, can I get an audition for the next Disney film? Like I got a great voice. I got some great characters. I could lay them on you. What do you think?
That is a definite no. Yeah.
Wow.
Not going to happen. Not going to happen.
All good answers, Rick.
Other answers?
You're smart.
Do you have any other answers besides no?
Well, actually, when you get really high, you sound a little like Winnie the Pooh. So,
You
who
know what?
knows? But yeah, I got a
Yeah.
No,
little,
we're
you
Don't
just
get
get
him
listening.
started, Rick.
you get
Please don't get
Hey,
excited.
him
I'm
started.
sure. I'm sure
Yeah.
when people find out what you did and do, they pull you aside at the dinner and they're like, "Hey, I want to lay this voice on you."
I
You know,
bet.
I
Oh
can't
gosh.
imagine how many times folks who bent your ear for their
Uh,
chance at the big time.
Within the church, yeah, it's even a problem at the church. Some guy waits in line and in some aisle says, "Hey, I have a question for you. Can I audition?" And I'm like, "Oh,
You kidding? Oh
no,
boy.
happen all the time." Or can I get Disneyland tickets? That's the
Yeah,
other
yeah,
one.
yeah. Right.
Like, yeah, I got a whole stack of them. I just dole out. So
I got some right here. I got some right with me.
love you,
Uh,
brother, but not gonna happen.
Not going to happen. Thank you for joining us, man. As we discussed before, you've had an interesting career. We'll dive into some of that as we go, but more importantly, tell us a little bit about your family to get everybody oriented to your kind of fatherhood and husband story. Tell me a little bit about your family.
Yeah, my going all the way back, I grew up in a Christian household, parents who love the Lord, and I went to a Christian university. It's where I met my wife, and we've been together coming up on 39 years this December.
Wow.
Congrats.
So
Awesome.
it's pretty exciting, and the big 40 next year. And then we have 5 children. We went girl, boy, boy, girl, and then we adopted a little girl from China when she was 11 months old. We took the whole family over to China and brought her home, and she's now a senior in college at the same college where my wife and I met.
Fantastic.
Wow.
Uh,
So 5 kids,
so
and you have grandkids, right?
we do. We have 11 grandkids.
11.
11.
Yeah, it's awesome. So fun.
That's
Busy, busy,
amazing.
busy, busy. Good for
Yeah,
you.
in fact, as you know, with married kids, we have to share Christmases with the in-laws, right? So they get their Christmas with the in-laws. This is our off year. We don't get Christmas with the kids this year. So we get them for Thanksgiving. So, which is next week. And we've got all 23 of us coming in. They're going to be here all week long, and we do Thanksgiving and Christmas back to back. So, next week is
Man, oh
a
man.
nutty week. But
Yeah.
it's so much
Yeah,
fun.
you
And I
better
had the
rest up.
23rd. If you're doing the math, the 23rd is because my mother-in-law just moved in with us because my wife's father passed away, and so we need
Yeah.
to take care of her.
Yeah.
So
Okay,
Good for
so
you.
23.
for the thousands
Surrounded.
of dads listening, who are in the back of their mind, they're kind of griping about Thanksgiving already. They're like, I got to go to that dumb party and I got to take a pie and whatever. Rick just removed every excuse you have and every grumbling you have.
Yeah, and he did it with a smile.
Oh, yeah. When I look
In-
at that credit card statement, I don't smile.
You inhale 24 people next week and your mother-in-law.
Yeah.
Like, just do that. I
I'm
dare
glad we
you.
got you in now beforehand.
Yeah.
That's hilarious.
Yeah, if
That's
you get
so
me the
great.
week after, I might be a little. I might be
Yeah.
on my 6th cup of coffee, not
Yeah.
just my
Yeah.
first cup of coffee this morning.
Lawson, you and I were doing some reading up on Rick, and one of the things you found is how he viewed, and I want to tee you up, Lawson, to tee Rick up, how he viewed his work kind of in the secular world for decades. Take us down that path, because I'd love to hear Rick's thoughts on that. We have a lot of dads listening, who don't work for a quote unquote Christian organization or at a church, and so they have to balance their faith with the kind of the real world. Lawson, get us started.
Yeah, well, you fix what I have to say, Rick, and make it right. But so 35 years with Disney as the person in charge of taking characters, whether that be the actual actors that did the voice recording or finished product, and translating it into languages worldwide. So humongous job. You think about the impact of some of the Disney movies and characters that wouldn't have had the impact across the whole globe, had you not done what you did. And now doing, I think, kind of copy paste that for The Chosen. And I think I saw where you kind of describe your time at Disney as training, like you like that you're looking back going, okay, that's what it was all really for, is what I'm doing now versus necessarily in the moment. Um, will you describe that? Did I get that right? And then secondly, like, why would you say that? I wondered when I read it, does that mean that recently, since you began the Chosen Project translations, that you're looking back and going, oh, that's why I met that person or was in that place, or, like God's revealing to you now, um, that's got to be super special. I hope it is for you anyway.
Yeah.
That you're able to look back and go, yeah, that is why my path was created to bring me to this point now.
Yeah, absolutely. I can look at God's sovereignty just in my life, and at the time when you're in the moment, you're going, Why is this happening? Why am I here? Why am I having these frustrations?" And then, obviously, with all of us, when we get to the other side, we look back and we go, "Oh, I totally get it. God, thank you." And yeah, I looked at my career really as a mission field for all those years. It was a great opportunity just to be a light in a dark place. As we know, Hollywood's kind of a dark place. And had an opportunity just to maybe be salt and light. And we always say salt is a preservative. It slows down decay. So if I could be there and slow down some of the decay, I felt like I was there for a purpose. And in reference to what you said, that was kind of a training ground, I do believe the Lord taught me a lot in terms of my vocation. And it's not an area, the international aspect, which we'll talk about in a little bit. International area was not something I pursued. In fact, I got a
Mm.
D in all 4 semesters of Spanish in high school.
I wondered to myself at the time, I was like, does this guy just speak a bunch of languages or something? Like,
No,
how did that
no.
work?
In fact, I thought I
He's
knew I
like the
was
Pope.
going to go into entertainment, but I just thought, what would I ever do with Spanish? Why would I even need to pay any attention in this class? And here the Lord put me in charge of every language for the largest entertainment company in the world, which was Disney at the time. And somehow I got dumped into being creatively the head of all foreign language production at Disney.
Mm.
So, but I look at that and I look back and I go, and look how God used that to now take something like The Chosen, which we just set the Guinness Book of World Records for the most
Saw that, yeah.
translated series in history. We're working in, over 140 languages currently, and we're on our way to
Mm.
600 languages for The Chosen. But I just look at those days where I was kind of kicking and screaming at Disney, going, "No, this isn't what I want to do. I don't want to do the international thing. I want to work with talent. I want to write music. I want to do all these other things." But the Lord had a purpose to it all.
Mm.
Wow.
I got to be, this was a long time ago when I lived in Louisville, where Kent and I met originally, was helped to create a media company called City on a Hill Productions, and then was on the board there, just helped raise money and stuff like that. It was early on with taking sort of church resources and digitizing them on camera.
Hmm.
Um, the director at the time, our primary director, said something to the effect of, it's been a long time again, said something to the effect of, visual media is the most universal language of our time. And so we have to do things differently. We have to present the gospel in a way that is relevant.
Hmm.
And this is a follow up to what you were just talking about. You mentioned localization. So it's not just simple dubbing, or captions across the bottom. That doesn't, in your mind, really translate to, no pun intended, translate. It doesn't really cut the mustard, like it's got to be what you called localization. And I want to tie that, explain what you meant, please, and then tie it to our kids today. As dads, our kids are interpreting the world in ways that
Mm.
some of us don't understand,
Sure.
and to be relevant and to speak their language.
Yeah.
I'd love to get your take on something practical that comes to mind as far as dads go, that may feel like, I don't even know what TikTok is, or my
Sure.
teenager are lost on me. They don't, I can't connect and relate in a
Totally.
way. So localization for you means what? And then if you would kind of tie that into some practical thought around, how do dads connect with our within our families?
Yeah, no, that's interesting. I never really thought about it like that before. But yeah, when I started the international bit at Disney, we were tasked with. Let me back up just a little bit. I was in charge of. I started out in charge of all the Disney character voices, so ensuring that Mickey Mouse always sounded like Mickey Mouse.
Mhm.
All the you know uh, products around the Walt Disney Company, and then with Little Mermaid, we now have this new franchise. and we realized that the animation business was growing. So now I was in charge of ensuring that this new brand, the Little Mermaid brand, was consistent throughout the entire company. And then we get to Aladdin and Beauty and the Beast and then the Lion King and just ensuring consistency. So Michael Eisner at the time says, "Hey, you've already nailed down um, the English speaking world, right? We're consistent around the world. You're doing what you're supposed to do. Can't you do this in other languages as well, so that we're equally consistent in French, Italian, German, Spanish, Japanese, Portuguese, wherever you might be?" So we said, yeah, I guess we could look at that. It's dubbing, right? I mean, taking things out around the world in different languages. And we didn't want to do the Godzilla dub. And that's kind of to your point.
Yeah, right.
That is your
Right.
that is your dub. What we want to do is we coined the phrase an idiomatic adaptation. Okay. And the word idiomatic comes from idioms. So understanding the colloquial phrases and the street talk of what a culture has, rather than just today we would call it a Google translation. We didn't have that back then, but just a straight apples to apples translation of what we were saying. And there's so many nuances, so many jokes in the Disney films that we had to get right for the local culture. If you say it's raining cats and dogs, I mean, that may
Right.
not mean anything to someone, right?
Right.
They say, what, cats and dogs are falling out of the sky? It doesn't mean anything to them. So we have to make sure that we find the local colloquial phrases and the idioms in each country with experts who understand the language, that live in territory. We weren't doing any of the translations here in Los Angeles. We were doing everything in the local markets so that they could understand how to turn the jokes and the phrases into something that worked locally. You think of a movie like Cars. Okay, take Cars, Mater, for example. So Mater's kind of a country bumpkin, right?
Yeah.
How does the redneck country bumpkin
Yeah.
translate in Germany?
Yeah.
Does that mean he's from, another part of Germany where they associate that type of character? So how do we get them to understand that character and really where he's coming from on a local level? So we'd use different accents and stuff like that in a market so that they could identify with Mater as a character. So those are all the little nuances when we talk about localization. It's getting the translation right. It's even getting the voices right to ensure that it resonates with the local people. And then that ties into what you said about our own kids. And that is, how do we resonate, and understand the idiomatic way to
I'm
parent
just going to
our
start calling
children,
my
right?
kids idiomatic. I'm going to say, why are you being such an idiomatic?
Yeah.
They're not going to know what I'm talking about.
Yeah, so I think as parents, that is what we need to do. We need to kind of understand their level and get them on a local level. And, there are parallels there that the culture needed to understand what we were trying to do in our films. In the same way, our kids need to understand why we're parenting the way we are. And at the same time, we need to parent so that they understand us. Otherwise, they're like the Japanese audience that doesn't understand the joke, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Our kids could be like that. They don't. I don't understand what you're saying, Dad. We aren't on the same planet. This doesn't make sense. So, it's a great parallel, and I'm glad you drew that out, Lawson, because that's pretty interesting. I've never really thought about it that way. But in my own children, and this is just on the practical side, while we made church a priority for our entire family. I mean, we didn't miss. And in fact, my kids loved our church so much, as punishment, we would say, you can't go to this, event, youth group, because they love the church. So, super blessed that they are, all walking with the Lord. And it's a blessing to have them have that passion. But with the boys in particular, I found that they were really interested in music, really good musicians. My one son's a drummer. My other son can play just about anything. And music was kind of one of those equalizers for us that resonated with us. And it wasn't, some Christian music, really great stuff, but also a lot of secular music where we could break it down. And even if the lyrics might have been something that, might have been a little on the edge, we could talk through those things. And that was kind of, even today, my sons will send, they know I love like the 80s stuff. In fact, I was watching a documentary on Boston last night, so it's
Nice. Oh,
I
man.
love great music. And but my boys will like hook into something, go, Dad, you're gonna love this, listen to this. And
That's
that's
great.
a
Yeah,
common
music.
denominator. So when we talk, my boys are a little older, so they aren't quite into the TikTok thing, the way that maybe a younger generation might be. But for our younger dads, I think finding that common denominator with your kids, that could be sports, that could be video games,
That's
whatever it
exactly
might
right.
be.
Yeah.
That, see, there's got to
Yeah.
be some connection there. And then I think that builds a relationship.
Well, and Rick, I know guys are listening to this, and the dads out there going, man, Rick had a complicated job. Rick had a job where there's high stakes, high pressure, a lot of exposure to a lot of different, big cultural kinds of things. You could have been an 80 or 90 hour a week guy, right? You could have been the guy who never was home and never spent time with his family, because you could have just said, man, I got to go from this famous person meeting to that famous person meeting. How did you balance a big job like that and the complicated and even international, probably some travel, with being an engaged dad when your kids were younger? Tons of dads wrestle with that. They may not be the senior leader of translation for Disney, but man, they got a job where they're on the road or it's difficult. How'd you balance that?
Yeah, it wasn't always easy. I mean, I married a great woman who helped me balance that, and she would remind me of when I was spending too much time at the office. I kind of let the management know early on that the family was a priority, and they respected that. Actually,
Good.
while they expected me to work hard, and yes, I put in a lot of long hours, and there were those times. But I think if you ask my kids if I wasn't around, I don't think any of them would say, no, Dad was never around. They just wouldn't say that. I was always there for their sports games. I was always there for their musicals if they were in something. I was always around and present, certainly on the weekends if I wasn't traveling. But when you have an international job, that was a
Yeah, it's
huge
tough.
deal. Yeah, I remember. I mean, I'll drop a name because it was one of my favorite moments of my career. And that was, I was working with Phil Collins on Tarzan. And we were over in Germany during the Kosovo, I think it was the Kosovo War, Sarajevo
Wow.
War, one of the wars. And so we had to do some pickups with Phil in Germany, and he was living in Switzerland. So we had to fly him from Switzerland to Innsbruck, Austria, and get him from Innsbruck, Austria up to Germany. Okay, a little bit of a logistic nightmare because there were windows when you could fly because this war was going on.
Wow.
So we're done with the recording session outside of Munich, and we say the only way we're going to get Phil to the airport on time to hit the window so we can get out of here is to get a private helicopter. So we fly a private helicopter. It lands there in a field next to the studio. Phil jumps in, and I go, hey, wait, are you guys going back to Munich on your way from Innsbruck? They go, yeah. I said, okay, then I'm jumping in. Drop me back off at the studio. So I jump in the helicopter with Phil. We fly over the Austrian Alps, and we drop Phil off. He gets on his plane. He goes back to Switzerland. I get back in the helicopter, fly over the Alps again, and they drop me off back at the studio.
My gosh.
Okay. So, and I'm saying all that just because it's very, very cool. But I'd been there for probably 2 weeks already. And I call my wife and say, Carrie, you can't believe the day I had. Flew in the helicopter with Phil. We saw the Austrian Alps. It was done. And she goes, oh, that's really nice. 3 of the kids
That's
had the
cute.
flu. One threw up all over the steps, all over the stairs at our house. She wanted nothing to do with it. And I'm like, oh, all I got to do is get back home to those kids. I don't care whether but it was just it was the perfect example of this, me kind of living this
Yeah, bring you right
unfriendly
back to
career,
earth.
and my
Right.
wife dealing with the really hard things at home.
Oh,
So,
Wow.
so I always remember that. I go, okay, I gotta
And
take
that's
care
when
of
you went by. That's when you went by the store in Munich and got her something really nice to take home,
Yeah,
right?
Yeah.
exactly. Yes.
You're like, I just made that up, Carrie. That's not. I'm just out here just having a horrible time.
I was just in an Uber. It's fine. It's
That's
fine.
Yeah, it's nothing like what I was saying. Anyway, sorry about that. Uh,
Yeah, I
Hey,
remember the perfect, dichotomy of what I was kind of living at times. But if I ever had to be out of town, I had an executive that gave me a lot of great advice. He was a really great family man, and he said, "Look, if you got to go out of town and it's an international trip, if you left on a Monday, never be gone 2 weekends." So we always tried to, if we
Yeah.
had to bridge a
Yeah.
weekend, we always made sure we were back by the following Friday. So you might miss one weekend. And I even tried to do that as little as possible. In fact, I saw 11 countries in 9 days one time. That was my
Whoa.
record. And people
oh
are
my
like, "Why would
gosh.
you do that to yourself?" And it's like, well, because I have this like pulling to get back home to be with my
Yeah.
family, right?
That's
I'll
okay
just
though. In
do
Right.
what it
Europe, they're really
takes.
close together. I mean, they're so close
What's
together.
that?
You can hit so
Yeah,
many.
yeah, that's right. That's exactly right. In Europe, all take a train to the next country. So yeah, so we would. It was always my priority, and people say, "You saw so much of the world." I go, "No, I really didn't, because I never took the time
Yeah.
to go out
Yeah.
and
Same.
sightsee. I
Yeah.
wasn't there to sightsee. I was there to do my business and get back home. So I
Yeah.
always had this pull, and so now it's kind of fun. Now that I'm kind of an empty nester, um, my wife and I can go back and see some of the things that I didn't get to see when I was in all these different countries.
Although, as we approach the holidays, I don't think your nest is gonna be very empty. It sounds like you guys have a
Yeah,
bunch of folks
exactly.
on their way.
Yeah, no, we could talk about the empty nest thing for a while, because we had it for about 2.5 seconds, and
Yeah.
That's
Yeah. Hey,
great.
it happens.
yeah,
It's
yeah,
all a blessing.
yeah, it
Um,
is absolutely.
hey, on the show, we talk often about, dads being under attack nowadays. Kind of the American culture is, I mean, you watch commercials and dads just look like a doofus, kinda out of touch and useless. Um, you have mentioned before in other, interviews about brand identity and the believer's brand identity, and something I think,
Mm.
I'd love to get you to talk about, specific to so let's say you are the CEO of Dad Inc., and you're setting the
Ooh, I like
brand
that.
strategy. Um, you talked about deposits and withdrawals
Mm,
of the brand. It's something
yeah,
I think you heard from, Steve Jobs,
yeah,
and that they count, like putting deposits into the brand strengthens it, withdrawals can weaken it. How about dads today? What would you say to us dads to say, remember your brand identity, and that comes from God. God has chosen us to be these
yeah,
fathers. That's why we say father on purpose. You're not a father on accident.
right.
Talk about what that means to you, the deposits and withdrawals in our families.
Yeah,
Nice.
well, I mean, it starts with consistency and integrity. And I heard that from Steve Jobs. We were in a meeting with him. He was talking about Apple, the number one brand in the world. And I think we were on like working on Cinderella 3 or something like that. And they just get worse and worse and worse. And he's like, "Hey guys, you want
Yeah.
a great brand, you need to make deposits." And with that, and I think the Toy Story franchise is a really good example of that. So that was Pixar. Steve Jobs associated with Pixar,
Okay.
and what we were doing with our Toon Studio division was we were making cheaper versions of what was really a great film. So he was saying those are withdrawals from the brand. People are not
Mm,
going to care about Cinderella anymore by the time you get to a bad quality Cinderella 3 versus
right.
Mm.
Toy Story. Every one of those films, Toy Story 1, 2, and 3 are brilliant, as a trilogy. Each one of those is a deposit into that trust account, into that Pixar brand, right? So I think as a dad, I think it's very similar. I think the consistency and integrity as a dad in every interaction that we have with our audience. So I'm going to say my audience is our kids, right? Would be a brand deposit or a withdrawal.
Mm.
And I think we have to make deposits into our children. I think we need to be models of brand consistency and integrity, and that means, you know, watching all the things that I struggle with. I was not always the most patient guy, and I really had to work on my patience, and work on that fuse. I don't
Yeah.
have an
Mm.
anger problem, but I know that I would get impatient when you got 5 kids running around. You know what it's like. So, but so either they see dad as this hothead, better not get dad upset because he's gonna blow up, or hey, it's okay to make mistakes.
Mm.
How can I be a testimony to my own children of patience and kindness and understanding, all those things, the fruits of the Spirit, showing them, love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, gentleness, goodness, all those things. How can I continue to deposit into their lives with every interaction?
Yeah.
Every interaction versus the withdrawals.
That deposit and withdrawal analogy is you also
Amazing,
don't want
right?
you can make a
Brilliant.
withdrawal too if your kids are like, "Why is dad acting like that in front of these people at church? He's not like
Right.
that at home," I
Yeah.
mean,
Totally. And how many
Hypocrisy.
dads are like that,
Right.
right? How many shiny, happy faces on Sunday
That's right.
morning they get home and they're
I
a
keep telling
mess.
Rick, I keep telling Lawson he's got to get his act together on that. He really
I'm a
does. He needs to.
podcast as soon as this podcast's over, I'm going out there and
I mean, he's killing me. He's killing me. So Rick, okay, so you're at Disney for 3 decades, more than 3 decades. A job where a lot of people would look and go, "Wow, what a fantastic ride! What an interesting." My son Alex was joking by text back channel as you were talking. This guy created my childhood, which is hilarious. I'm sure you hear that often. Um,
There's a
then
big team. There's a big team there.
oh yeah,
Real
it
deep.
wasn't just you. You
Yeah.
mean you didn't do all those voices yourself?
I know,
thought you just were
actually, no, I think there's
ventriloquist.
pretty talented people there at the Walt Disney Company.
So then, however, in your career arc, a choice you could have made, and I'm kind of bring this back to what we hear from dads all the time. When they get into their 50s and they start to think about what they're going to do in their 60s or 70s, it's like, I'm going to retire. I'm going to go play golf. I'm going to sit on the beach and drink, pina coladas. And a friend of mine in Northern California told me, he goes, Kent, you're
virgin pina coladas.
of course, obviously. I mean, who drank a pina colada? We got to get this out to the Baptists after all. We don't want to offend them. So a friend of mine in Northern California told me several months ago, he's in his late 60s, and he goes, Kent, your 60s and your 70s can be your 2 most influential decades on planet Earth. He goes, and I had a friend of mine who was 80 at the time told me, don't waste your 60s. Don't waste them, doing just selfish pursuits. It seems like a guy in your shoes, you could have made a few phone calls and had a pretty easy retirement. But instead, you jump into this like giant, you go out of the frying pan into the work fire of having to do a big, giant kingdom ministry project. And here's what I would love for you to talk to some dads about. 2 things. One, why'd you do that? You could have retired, so to speak, and just hung out with the grandkids all day. But secondly, so many guys, I don't think, have a vision for how to leverage their 30s, 40s, and 50s. Like it happened, and they don't know how to leverage it in their 60s and 70s. So they're just going to go play golf and get better at pickleball. Why didn't you do that? And what do you say to the dad who's in his mid 50s or early 60s, and he's thinking of checking out for the next 10 or 15 years?
Yeah, I think that there's a temptation there for sure. But real practically, I'm a little too ADD to just sit and play golf and see what's on the TV. I've got to be doing something. I would drive my wife nuts if I was just sitting around doing nothing. So that's number one. But the Lord just dumped this in my lap to work on The Chosen. I mean, I had already announced my retirement, not knowing what I was going to do, but I was done. I had said, "Hey guys, I've run my race here. I'm finished." They wanted me to stay till 2024. I announced my retirement in 2022, so they wanted me to stay for 2 years. And I was ready to jump off without a parachute. And it wasn't even a financial issue for me. It was just like, hey, this is what we're going to do. But the Lord just placed The Chosen in my lap. And, after discussing with my wife, it was absolutely what I needed to do. So it was neat to be in a place where I could actually see the Lord's hand in it. It wasn't just by chance that I jumped into this. I didn't really even pursue it. The Lord pursued me to do it. And so that was, I didn't want to just sit in retirement. I'm not that type of person. And I am 100% in agreement with you. I think these are the most productive years that I've ever seen. I'm getting more fulfillment out of what I'm doing than I did out of all those years at Disney. And to your point about the 60s and 70s being really great years, that's when the kids are out of the house. I mean, now I do not have that, pull to be there at everything. I mean, I do it for the grandkids, but it's not as mandatory as it was as a father. So now I've got this freedom,
Mm,
and my wife and I can almost partner with it. If I need to travel, she goes with me now.
love it. Yeah.
So
That's awesome.
it's a pretty cool. I think it's a great way, and it may not be vocational. It may be ministry. Maybe
Sure.
those are your key years, 60s, 70s. That's when you really dive into the church. That's when you really
Mm,
start ministering to
mhm.
others and stop thinking about yourself and the money you can make. Rather, hey, let's take the time to pour into others, and maybe that is on the golf course. I don't want to
Yeah,
hammer
it's not. I'm
anybody
not
down who's
anti-golf. Yeah,
retired and is playing a lot of
For
golf.
sure.
You can minister to someone, but be intentional about it, right? It's not about you, it's about
Yeah.
others.
Yeah, and being open to what God has in store for you. I think your company is, Snow Cone
Yes,
Productions?
Snowcone Productions.
Yeah, and there's a story that goes with that. I thought to myself when I saw that, I wonder what happened in that day in Rick's life that he was like, "I'll go grab that snow cone and go sit on the beach,"
Yeah.
not knowing that God was gonna use that in some crazy way like he's done. God is so in control, he can be super creative. Was there something that do you remember anything about that particular day when The
Yeah.
Chosen came to you?
Yeah, it's truly amazing. So, this was in the middle of COVID. My wife and I went off to Hawaii. Um, there were some things happening at Disney that, I knew that my time was coming to an end, so we went to Hawaii to kinda pray about it. So we said, "Let's go get us shave ice." Y'all know what a shave ice is, essentially
Mhm.
cone in Hawaii, and, we went and sat on this park bench, middle of COVID, nobody's talking to each other, everybody's keeping their distance, and some guy comes up, and his wife and his 2 girls randomly ask if they could share the bench with us to eat their snow cones, and, we start talking to them, and they're from Colorado, find out they're believers, and so we start talking and getting a little more familiar with each other. I told him what I was doing at Disney and that I was, praying about maybe leaving, that my time had run out there, and he said, we need to keep in touch. And I said, okay, that's random. I mean, you're just a guy here in Hawaii on vacation with your family eating a snow cone. You want to keep in touch? He goes, I thought he wanted like how you guys started. I thought maybe he wanted to do a voice. Hey, if we keep in touch, maybe I'll get to be a voice in a Disney movie. Uh, but no, so we actually zoomed a couple times, and it turned out his name was Brad Hill, and Brad works for a parachurch ministry called Glue, and Brad was
sure. Yeah.
in
Mm.
with Mark Green, who essentially is our kind of founder for the Come and See Foundation. When they purchased the IP of The Chosen, Brad was the one who asked them, said, "What's your pain point?" And they said, "We don't know how to get this thing out around the world." And this guy who I had a shave ice with said, "I know a guy.
I know a guy.
I know a guy."
Unreal.
And from that meeting, he texted me. I was sitting at my office at Disney, sitting at my desk, and I get this text saying, "Hey, are you familiar with The Chosen?" I said, "Yeah, of course I'm familiar with The Chosen." He says, "Would you know how to get that thing out around the world?" And I go, "Let's talk." And
Oh,
so at that point, and I had already announced my retirement, and that just kind of came in just totally out of the blue. I mean,
so
unbelievable. Like I said,
fantastic.
the Lord led me to that one. I did not pursue that.
One thing I see a lot in the church world is guys who hold on to something too long, whether it's a pastorate or their eldership or their committee appointment or whatever it is.
Mhm.
And the minute they finally take that faith step or they go, you know what? I don't know what I'm going into next, but I know this is closed. And they
Mhm.
shut it down. The amazing thing happens. But they keep going and they keep going to so that they can have a perfect bridge, right? Where there's no gap.
Mhm.
And
Right.
so many of them find that next thing after they've made that choice. And it sounds like that's where you were.
Yeah. Yeah, I get some really wise counsel from someone. They do a lot of the post production. In fact, they do all the post production for The Chosen. It's a studio called Kappa Studios, and they were a top tier post production house for Hollywood. And the owner is a believer, and he just says, "I'm tired of working on the junk. I'm not going to work on the
Yeah.
junk anymore." And
Yeah.
he just said, "I won't take anything in this building that doesn't honor the Lord." And
Mm.
so he started working on these family oriented projects, which is fine, but most of the Christian content came to him. And so I went to his studio, was talking to him. His name's Paul Long. And Paul was just encouraging me. He just said, "Jump off the roof without a parachute, man." He goes, "I did, and the Lord is blessed. It's unbelievable. It's amazing what the Lord will do." And I'm like, well, that's easy to say, but boy, can I really just jump off and not have a plan? And and not only did I really not have to jump off, I had already announced my
Yeah.
retirement,
Yeah.
but I was still working at Disney when this opportunity came up. So the Lord he probably knew my weaknesses and my insecurities and said, I'm just going to coddle you a little bit and give you this amazing opportunity.
That's fantastic. Yeah, when we started our fatherhood ministry, my old employer made it easy in a sense for that to happen. And so April and I got a blessing as we walked out, and it was not it was not like a hard and fast stop. It was more of a glide down. To your point, God made it obvious and easy. When you think about the next generation, you have kids, you have grandkids. Um, are there things you see, Rick, now at this stage of your career and not your career, your life, where you go, man, I would love to see the next generation do this, or I would love to see my grandkids have this opportunity, or what are some things you think about? Because now guys like you and me and Lawson, we can see like we have less time on Earth than we already have had, more than likely. I mean, God can do whatever He wants, and hope He comes back in 10 minutes. Like I understand, but you just start to think about, we're all in the third quarter of our life, so to speak. What is that revealed to you as a dad or as a granddad? What are things you think about now that maybe 10, 20, 30 years ago you weren't thinking about?
Whew, it's a good question. It's a loaded question too. There's so many things I would love to see, the next generation do in terms of kingdom work. I think media is a powerful tool. Certainly within the last, I'll call it 20 years, the way the internet, even what you guys are doing here with this podcast, the way this has taken off and the way we can reach people around the world, we aren't restricted to distribution platforms like
Yeah.
ABC, NBC, or a theater. Now we just have this thing called the internet. And I think the world has gotten in front of us on all this. Like they've taken
Mm,
off. And I think we're a little behind as believers in terms of what we're doing with media. And it's one thing I'm really excited about with the Come and See Foundation and what they're trying to do in terms of creating quality content in the Christian space so that people know Jesus. And
mm,
I would encourage the next generation of believers to find out ways to pursue that in quality ways. We've seen I don't want to dig into anybody because usually budgets are small, but because the budgets are small, we lose quality on things, and so we can't
yeah.
compete with Hollywood. So
Yeah.
how do we compete with Hollywood and provide the quality that people expect and get the content out so that people will actually watch it? I think The Chosen's doing a great job with that
Yeah.
because the quality is there. It's one of the few times been able to see it. I think with House of David is another good example where they've done a fantastic job
Yeah, me too.
of
Yeah.
raising the quality. So people are starting to watch this, and I think they're learning. We're hearing amazing stories of the gospel reaching into parts of the world, and people are coming to Christ in amazing ways. And it starts with The Chosen by finding out who Jesus is. So then they go to the Bible and they read the Bible. They get involved in a local church, and next thing you know, they're walking with the Lord. So that's number one. I would think that would be a great
Mm,
opportunity for the youth of today to use media as a platform to
yeah.
get the gospel out. And also, I just heard it at church on Sunday. We don't want to build platforms for ourselves, right? We
Mm,
need to build platforms, not so that we become popular. There's the whole humility versus our own egos getting in the way of that. But creating an opportunity to share the word of God. I mean, that's the platform. So that would probably be one of the things that I would encourage the youth to consider. The other one is, we, as the older generation, we'll call it, the three of us, as the older
back
generation,
when I was a
we
kid. Yeah.
we also don't want to be too nostalgic. It's something I'm reading.
Yeah.
There's
Yeah.
a book I'm going through right now called Living Life Backwards. It's on the study of Ecclesiastes. And we don't want to be too nostalgic in how we look back at things. The Lord has us in a place right now, and we think, boy, how's this generation going to be able to
Yeah.
survive? And sometimes I get that way with my own grandkids.
Yeah.
But,
Mm,
I think we have to remember that God is in the here and now. He hasn't gone missing in this generation, right?
absolutely.
So I think they just need to continue to call on him And I don't want to be, oh, I wish things were the way they were back then. No, we have
Yeah.
great opportunity
No.
now.
Yeah. Well
know,
said.
Absolutely.
Totally
Absolutely.
agree.
I was with a friend recently at lunch, and he was kind of bemoaning AI's impact on the job market. And I was like, hey, man, 50 years ago, 65% of the jobs that currently exist did not exist. And 50 years from now, if Jesus doesn't come back, there'll be a whole new crop of jobs.
Right.
Like the thing he does for a living, frankly, did not exist 75 years ago. And he's bemoaning AI's impact. And I'm like, come on,
Yeah.
man, every season, it's okay. We're going to be
Yeah.
okay.
Right.
Rick,
Right.
we talked before we started recording. Imagine you're in like a big stadium. You're in AT&T Stadium, and you're looking out in the audience, and you see tens of thousands of dads. That's who you're talking to, more than likely. What would you say to those dads based on just kind of not nostalgia, but as you reflect and you think, man, here's some things I did well as a dad, here's some things I didn't do so well as a dad. What are one or two things, if you could just kind of mic drop off the stage, what would you say to dads as they are striving to love their wives well, as they are striving to lead their children in a way that is godly and faithful? Give the dads some benefit of your wisdom or your thoughts as we kind of wrap up today's show.
And I hate to be too repetitive of maybe what others have said, but I just like the word intentional. I know it may get thrown around a lot, but it is a really good word in terms of what we need to be as dads. Um, I believe that with my own kids, I had to be very intentional with them to make sure I spent time with them. Take my daughter on a date night, or take my boys out to a concert, or and then have those conversations. If you're just kind of a presence that kind of comes and goes, back and forth from work, I don't know. We always say that the lessons in life are caught, not taught. For our children, they see it.
Yeah.
They see mom and dad. The relationship I have with my wife is very present to them, right? So if I treat her poorly, what's that saying to the kids? So again, it's probably overused, but that word intentional of just ensuring that they see a right relationship with my wife. And then that I have that same intentionality with every interaction I have with them, that I seek that out.
Yeah.
Yeah. Right on. Well said.
What a great word. Well, and I would tell you, as one of the many millions of fans of The Chosen, I have been a big fan, ever since it first started coming out. Our kids have watched almost every episode. We've actually gone back and binge watched old seasons while we wait for the next one. We're that family.
Good.
And for me as a dad, it creates opportunity, right? And it's not the thing. It's not the
Right.
thing, but it creates an opportunity to have conversations about the thing. Is that really what you think Jesus would have done? Or is that what you think his disciples would have done? And man, it has opened up a ton of opportunity for our family. So to you and all the guys, you and I both were trading some notes about guys we know in common. To you and all the guys behind it, man, it's a force, man. God's using it in a powerful way. Thank you for doing it.
Yeah, well, I love what you're doing, because I think as you watch the show, the great thing is to go to Scripture and go, okay, let's line that up with Scripture. I had forgot that John the Baptist sent his disciples to ask Jesus if he was the Messiah. I mean, John baptized Jesus, right? And then he sends his disciples back to say, "Are you really the Messiah?" And I'm going, "Wait a minute, is that really how it went down?" And of course, you go to the book,
There it is,
and you're like, "Oh wow, that's exactly what's here."
Right.
So, but that brings in conversations with your children as you can, reaffirm Scripture and if you, So, anyways, that's awesome. I think it's part of that intentionality that we talked about.
Well, I know you got a lot of ways you could use 50 minutes, and you gave us 50 of them today.
Yeah.
Thank you
Thanks
so
for being
much.
with
You've
us,
invested in a lot of dads. Thank you so much for being with us, brother. We really
It's my
appreciate your
pleasure.
time today.
Thank you for what you guys are doing.
It's our pleasure, man. Thanks, Rick.
All right, my pleasure.
That was a fantastic conversation. Loved having Rick on the show. Rick, thanks again for coming on the show. And I want to remind you, as I'm sure Lawson and Rick both would, you are not a father on accident. So go be a father on purpose.